We didn't get a chance to total it.
because if you would do this, right? Right? If you do this, right? What was the total of the spreadsheet I gave you guys? 1,240,000? You're missing $200,000 worth of expenses. Do you see why I give people totals and why you should always check control totals?
Yep.
What about, oh, that's actually, that was 1,236. What's the next year?
1,240.
Yeah, so you're missing $200,000 worth of expenses. I don't know where, but somewhere there, you're missing that, right?
Yes.
Now, let's see, how did you go about, what is this column here?
This is the 2012 plus 2013 averaged together and then added a 3% inflation.
Okay, so does it make sense, let's just do the roundabout math, right? So, if inflation is 3% every year, right?
Yes.
And I add year 1 to year 2, right, and average it, what's the average of that? 1.5% increase over the base year. Sort of on average,
Right.
intuitively, right?
Yeah.
So if I multiply it by 3, all I'm doing is doing what? Getting back to year 2. And I'm in year 3.
Right. So
Does that make sense?
it should have just took 2013.
Well, I wouldn't
Not
have,
necessarily, because it's, what if it's lower in 2013?
taken, not took.
Okay.
Taken, not took. Okay, but, so, guys, listen to what we're doing here. Why do we take a look at 2 years? Because 1 year may not be indicative of what an entire property's operations look like. Okay? We may need 2 years to see if in 1 year we had some extraordinary expenses that maybe don't repeat, you know, some repairs that were not something that would repeat, right? You know, maybe we've entered into a new service agreement where costs have either gone up or down. So the purpose of having more than 1 year, 2, 3, 4, 5, is to get a relative base on trends, right? But for forecasting purposes, I would venture to say your most recent period is more indicative of what the future is going to be than 2 years ago, than 3 years ago, than 4 years ago, right?
Great.
Now, we already talked about if you were doing this spreadsheet again, you wouldn't put a formula like that in there, would you?
No.
You would put an inflation factor somewhere, so
Right.
so we could say, hey, listen, we're only going to give you 3% increase on inflation. Boom. All of a sudden you adjust one place, flows through all the formula, you know, through all the spreadsheet, and away you go. Now, I'm a busy guy. There's too many line items in there. Like, I just want a summary. Like, can you just tell me, like, what insurance, property taxes, and maintenance are so that and tell me what it is per square foot? Right?
Yes.
Couldn't we have, instead of hidden columns, couldn't we have hidden rows? Didn't I give you something with totals?
Yes.
Well, I did, because you could have done this. You could have done this, for example. For example, I'm just saying for example. You could have added up like that for, you could have added that way, right? Right? Could have done that, right? Look. Boom, right? Boom, right? And you could have done this. Right? And now I don't have to look at a bunch of columns. I just have to look at, hey, what's landscape? Right? I mean, you asked me, well, there's like a credit here, it's net it. Or summarize it, right? I got maintenance and repairs, right? You know, could we have, you know, and before you know it, right, and before you know it, and I got one sheet and I see everything. I mean, people are busy. They don't have time to look at all this stuff. Plus, it's not that relevant to them, right? All of a sudden, I just took 10 columns, 10 rows, and made it 2. It's a lot easier to read that, right? 2 than it is Get lost. Okay, last one. Okay, so on the surface of it, I would say this is the easiest one for me to work with, okay? Why? Although I suggested to them that revenue was not part of the project, okay? They have it. I'm just gonna hide it for a second, okay? Alex is a good accountant, should know that totals, that we only have dollar signs in the first row of all line items, right? And he also should know that accountants, we don't use these things, Alex. We don't use that. What do we use? We format the cells, right? And use the single accounting lines, right? Ooh, look at that. Amazing, okay? Now we start seeing, let me blow it up a little bit. Now I'm start saying, okay, operating expenses, hey, I like this over here. Hey, 7 cents a square foot. Can I compare that to another building? Can I compare it to a previous year? Now, where did you guys pull this budget number from? You also hid it. Let's see what you did. What's this input from? What are these hard-coded numbers and calculations embedded? What did we talk about earlier today? How does somebody review that? How do I know, what does this input mean? I mean, could you not have put you know, 2013, 2014 actual, right? And then 2015 budget, and with a note, and then you can hide it and say, we took an average of the 2 years. We took the last year. We grew this one 3%. We adjusted this one for the purchase price, right? So if somebody's reviewing this, can ultimately come back and make changes or modifications to it, right? So let's just get rid of that for a second. Other things that are helpful when you got a lot of numbers and stuff, like I've done this before with you guys, I think. So again, I would have taken it, could have done this, for example, right? Let's bring that one down. Let's make it a lot easier, right? Bring this one down, right? Right. All of a sudden, again, I just got rid of 10 cells, right? I just got rid of 10 rows, and now I can start seeing what numbers make sense. Is 80 cents a square foot right in an office building in South Florida? You've got office buildings, Alex, is that right?
For what category is that?
It's like a Class B office building, high rise.
No.
Insurance.
Line item of insurance.
Yeah, about
I'd like $1.20 maybe?
we're about $1.
Yeah, so that seems awfully low, right? But anyway, you start getting the example. Now you start comparing numbers with what reality is in the marketplace. And we work through all that all the way down, and we get ourselves down to a point here where we say, forget the returns, I didn't ask for any of that. I didn't ask for operating income. I was looking for an operating expense budget. $12.38 a square foot. What did we say it was last year?
11.
So what increase is 1170 over that? this for? Let's just do this.
So 5.8%.
That's a good.
5.8%. So, is that realistic? Maybe it is. Maybe it is. And we'd like operating expenses to increase what? Less than rents. How much rents typically increase? 3, 2.5%, 3%. So, you know, I'd go back and say, okay, where do we think that the baseline that we had is something that we can't sustain or maintain? More broadly, does $12 for a Class B office building in Coral Gables make sense? Probably. Probably. Okay? So if you were to ask me of the 4 that I got, this is probably the closest one presentation-wise because it gave me what I asked for. A month-by-month summary. Okay? It gave me totals by square foot, and it corresponded much more to what the previous year's was than, you know, some of the other ones. What I liked about this one, I actually had the columns. I could do some audit of that. Okay? I like the sub-scores that didn't really fit in, but it made the thing look pretty. And I liked the very summary view that you gave us. It was all right there. Boom. I had it all. So, but you can learn from everybody. Remember, the purpose is to learn, right? So if you had another hour to do it, would you do it differently?
Yeah.
Would you distribute the work a little bit more, right?
You would hire Alex.
You would hire Alex. Okay, so we've gone through a lot today. It's been a pleasure, but you know we always end with a quiz.